It seems that we have been seeing a bit of flux on the market this week, lackluster trade as well. Give us an indication of what's been driving markets in Nigeria today.
Thanks, Eleni. Like you mentioned, the market has been flat for the last 2 trading days since the market opened after the elections. And to a large extent, the foreign investors have been the major drivers. And what we've noticed is that there's been strong bids. However, investors have been quite cautious on prices. So they haven't really been bidding up the market per se, and so that's why we've seen that very flat market performance. And in terms of volumes as well, we've seen volumes flat day on day, and if you compare the average trades for the month to what the market has traded over the last 2 days, it's been slightly above what we've seen, but I think generally market performance has been quite slow, and local investors as well have been quite cautious with the market, and to a large extent foreign investors have been the major drivers of the market.
Let's touch on some of the banks that were out with results. First Bank, gross earnings up 1.4%. We had the likes of Zenith, gross earnings down 1.4%. We saw Access also, gross earnings shedding 12%. Is this going to be the name of the game when it comes to the gross earnings picture for some of these banks going forward, or do you think this is as bad as it's going to get?
Yes, Ellen, I think it's more like as bad as it's going to get, really, because what we've seen so far with the banks that have released results, gross earnings has been quite flat, and in some cases we've seen declines. Like you mentioned, Access Bank's gross earnings declined by 14%. But I think the positive note that we'll be able to draw from the result is the fact that loans and advances have been quite strong. For First Bank, loans and advances for Q1 was up 9.9%. For Zenith Bank, it was up 10%, while for Access Bank was up 3%. I think for other banks as well, like GT that released its results last week, loans and advances also was up by 5.6%. So even though gross earnings has been flat or lower than the previous year, we've seen stronger loans and advances. And I think beginning of the year, we actually did expect that there would be a slower top line growth, because we expected that the elections would, to a large extent, slow down economic activity. And now that the elections are over, we'd expect to see a stronger performance from Q2 and going forward. So I think the worst is, I think Q1 is really the worst in terms of earnings for the banks. But I think if you look at the bottom line, they've been stronger. Bottom line has come up stronger for Zenith Bank. PAT was up 56%, while for First Bank was up 15%. So I think generally we've been seeing stronger bottom lines, and I think what is shown is that banks have improved cost management. We've seen stronger cost to income ratios year on year, and NPLs have also improved as well. So we expect to see lower loan loss provisions going forward. However, I think for Access Bank, NPL ratio was higher in Q1 than where it ended at the end of 2010. So I think generally we've seen a net positive performance for the bank.